but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say.
Good evening, welcome to the professionals. Permission to come aboard, Captain.
Yes, only if you come straight to the poop deck. Lad.
Well, let's get that out of the way. Was it a good trip that you had, Mitch, on the boat?
Fantastic. Well, 4 hours on a boat. Left Dubai Harbour Marina. Went and did come through the marina proper, then out to sea, and then anchored near the Burj Al Arab. Had an hour or so there, and then back. And it was belting, absolutely belting. What a great way to end the season. Kudos to Julie for organising everything the way she does, and for everybody else involved in the organisation of it. Really, it was a good way to celebrate, let our hair down, and yeah, it was fantastic. Really good.
Great stuff. Well, as always, we've got an hour with the professionals to chat Newcastle United, and those of you who follow Stu on Twitter, first of all, will see he's had a big dislike for the recent flyer done by John Justice Allen because it had pink on around his head. That's been a source of amusement for most of us at UFC Matters for the last few days. I'm glad to say that the new one has been sent, so there will be, and that has raised eyebrows as well. In fact, it's got something to do with eyebrows. But we'll come to that next week. But just want to say hi to Michael Charters, who's in the chat as well. He says, I'm in Turkey with your twin brother. Big shout out to this guy who's featured on Lookalikes before. It's a guy who works in Turkey who looks like me. So a big shout out to him, Michael. I did say that I would do that. I hope he's well. All right, Stu. Those people who follow you on Twitter as well will have seen that you've got something to say today. Plenty to say on a particular matter. So over to you.
Well, watching the Amigos on Friday, a lot of it was about the moving of seats for people. And now I sit and watching it. And the good thing about this is we're not all sheep, and we all have our own opinions. And that's why people tune in. So what I wrote about the seats, I was thinking I've been really busy at work, thankfully. I've been stowed off, but I had 20 minutes a day, and I thought, right, what we're going to talk about this evening. So I thought I'd put seats in one, and then I just start writing a couple of things, and I ended up with 2 pages. So it's probably easier if I read it off what I've written, and I'll do it slowly so people can understand, because I haven't had my Jaeger bombs today, so you might not understand it. So undoubtedly the seats was a PR goal, own goal, sorry. And I think watching what the lads were saying, I think Mr. Hasty was bang on when he said the only people who should have been consulted were the ones that were affected. And tickets will always be the nemesis of any board of a successful Newcastle United. However, I believe that we have to be conscious of not becoming a fan base like Man United.
Oh, he stopped in mid-flow. You stopped in mid-flow, Stu. You stopped in mid-flow, mate. So you got up the words, something about not being a fan base in Manchester United. That's what you got up to.
Fan base like Manchester United that cries over every decision the club makes. Remember, they don't have to consult fans. No board has to consult any fans about anything. And the board that we've got now are engaging more. The ownership are engaging more with the fan base than any other board in my lifetime. And that includes Sir John Hall and everyone that was around that period. They did the bit, and mostly we went along with it, but they never interacted as much. Now, it doesn't mean they're doing it right, but at least they're trying to do it. And they will make mistakes, but we all do. And as long as we're all trying to achieve the main, like the optimum or the utopia level of a successful Newcastle United on and off the pitch, that's where we need to go. On numerous occasions, both Mitch and myself have stated that PIF they're not a charity. They haven't purchased our club. They've purchased our club primarily for the potential, and the potential far outweighed any risk of the investment. And it's an investment. It's an investment vehicle to make profit. as well as many other things that the PIF have invested in, albeit on the understanding, thankfully for us, that they had to spend money to make money. They didn't just buy a club and think it was going to make the money like the previous owner did. And you know what? Talking about the previous owner, if he had spent money, if he had invested money, I couldn't care if he was still in charge, if he was putting the money in and actually trying to realise this untapped potential. But we have an ownership with unlimited funds that are willing to spend us. What we shouldn't be doing is moaning or bemoaning every decision that they make. And remember when they first got involved, at that stage, their involvement was purely business. Ours is emotional, and you have to split the difference. You know, if sport is an emotional trade. We're all passionate and emotional about Newcastle United. They bought it to make money, but that's changed. If you look at Yasser, with his first glimpse of the stand on the first day that he came in against Tottenham last season, you could see that he caught the bug. You could see it in his eyes. And even the last game of the season, he was up on the pitch just after a knee operation, wanting to kick about. You know, and he's now a fan. As though he's the chairman, he's now a fan. And these things we should be counting our blessings, not trying to have a go at. So I actually do believe our passion for the club is changing minds and hearts within PIF. Newcastle United is a drug, and it gives and takes, and we as fans have to as well. And sometimes we've got to cut them some slack. And of course, they need to maximise revenue. And this is the thing with the season tickets being moved because they've made the area corporate. But we all aware that we've got financial fair play constraints that limit our potential to grow exponentially in a short space of time like they want to and we want to. So it's moving a small section of supporters. They haven't just shifted them. They've told them they're going to have to move them. They've explained the reasons why, and they've given them choices. But there's thousands who can't get in the ground, you know. And yes, I'm not sitting there every week, and yes, I'd be annoyed if it was my seat saying that you have to move. But at least I still have the opportunity to watch this team grow over the coming years and be in the ground. And it was done to make more money for the club, which benefits us as fans because it's not going in Mike Ashley's back pocket. It'll go back into the club to make the club bigger, better and stronger. These people can wait to make the profits. They're going to get us as best as we possibly can be before they start taking money out of it. So what were the alternatives really, apart from, again, the own goal of not consulting the people? To me, how else can they make money from within the ground, the capacity that it's at? Do they put a tenner on every seat for every game? I think there'd be a bigger outcry there, wouldn't it? Or do they build a new stadium and say, right, now everyone's got their own seats and everyone can be happy where they're sitting, whether it's corporate, whether it's standing, whether it's family, whether it's disabled, whether it's singing sections, whether it's there for the away fans, everyone will get what they want. But then there'll be a massive outcry that they're moving stadium after promising not to straight away. You know, so it's a no-win situation. Yes, it could have been handled better, but there's so much more we can do about it. Those things I mentioned there those two things would have caused a bigger outcry. But if we want the trophies and the success, then we have to be more adaptable and understanding. We can't have our cake and eat it. Let's not become self-entitled. And I put a swear word, so I'll change it to moaners. Let's not become self-entitled. Times are changing for the better, and we as fans need to change also. Because if things don't change, they'll stay as we are. We didn't like the way we are. We like it to be better, and it is better. We've just come off probably the most exciting season we've had in 30 years, and we shouldn't be moaning. We really shouldn't. We'll go to Europe next season in the Champions League. That's it. Sermon over for Sunday.
Interesting. Mitch, what's your take on that? Oh, you're on mute, mate. You're on mute.
I had a little chat with Stu earlier just to get the essence of where he wanted to go with it. And he makes some very valid and salient points. I think Steve, you're right. Steve's right. Steve Hasty hit the nail on the head about consultation. You've got to chat to the right people. And if you haven't been chatting to the right people, that's a problem. But that's something that's surmountable. We've got a club that's growing in a way that we need to grow exponentially, but we can't just dump cash at the top end in. We've got to find clever ways to do that. And we've got to find sensible ways to do that. Also, I'm quite sure they've been left an utter ghost ship of a club. And you know, you've just been up last week to see Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. Are you going to enjoy Born in the USA done by them more than done by a guy with a one-man band and a kazoo? Well, of course you are. And for years under Ashley, we were the one-man band with a kazoo. And so many departments of the club are understaffed massively, and sometimes with people who are doing the same old thing the way they've always done. And that culture needs to change. And you don't change the culture of an organisation overnight. There are certain things that we have to accept, and they're going to have to continue to accepting. We might not like it, but it is what it is. It's the price on the ticket. And, you know, and you mentioned don't become like Man United. Yeah, I mean, gosh. They've had so much money spent on them, and they've been to 2 cup finals, won 1. They finished 3rd in the league. In a league probably, you know, to Man City, who are one of the strongest teams for decades. And they've finished 3rd to them. And it's still not enough. And they've had millions, nearly $1 billion spent in the last few years on players. And it's still not enough. And that supporters trust, who we were told was the biggest, if there was going to be a supporters trust that was ever going to buy a club, it would be them, because they had a massive war chest. All they've succeeded in doing is producing green and yellow scarves. That turned the fan base into a mocking, really a mocking stock to when they rock them out when something minor goes wrong. And so where are they now, and what are they doing? And if the best they've got is green and yellow scarves, and to make the fan base into a bit of a laughing stock, well, that's an own goal as well. And I think, you know, it's right that we have the ability to raise things, and we will continue to have that ability under these owners. That's very clear. But they've sometimes also, because of the accelerated growth, we've got a Champions League place way ahead of schedule. Some of these decisions might have to be made to satisfy UEFA requirements, because all of a sudden we've got Champions League games to think about hosting. Out of the blue. We weren't expecting this season. Nobody was. And anybody who says they were 100% expecting this is talking out the top of their head. So they haven't had long to get their heads around all of this. And some of those decisions and the way they've been made, it's not the same as Ashley waiting until an international break to drop something on with, and hope that by the time the next home game rolls round, we've sort of calmed down a bit. It's a very different process, and it's a very different way of dealing with it. They won't get everything right. No football club owner gets everything right. They have, by the grace of being A, not Mike Ashley, and B, doing what they've done so far, bought themselves a hell of a long honeymoon period. And we shouldn't be, we should be able still to raise concerns without turning that into becoming moaners and whingers. And it's balance on every side, as it tends to always be. And I think the way Stu puts things forward is very well thought out. I know what he's like when he tells me I've been making some notes. I know what's been going on inside that pink-covered head of his, where the cogs start.
Not pink anymore, it's the eyes.
But you know, and when he does, but that's why I like bouncing things around with Stu. He's not frightened to give you not even the devil's advocate position, just a totally different position that you might not have thought of. And that's why, and also I think he comes at it from a much more, because myself, you, Mr. Hasty in particular, Keith to an extent, have been involved in all sorts of what you'd consider political things within the fan base. That's something Stu's never really been interested in. Fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when he speaks, the authenticity stick, if someone who's not trying to point score or couldn't be interpreted as trying to point score or wheedle yourself into a position to do something, you're just calling it as he sees it. And that's the authenticity that he brings to this platform. And why I will talk Newcastle United until my dying day with that man. And we won't always agree. Sometimes we disagree quite vehemently. Mm-hmm. But it's all about making it better Newcastle United. And that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Of course it is. Of course it is. It's listen, Stu coined it at the start there when he said I think that's why a lot of people watch it, because none of us always have the same opinion. We can all have different opinions, and it's about putting it across in a constructive manner. And James McLeod says, very knowledgeable and informative conversation. Keep up the great work, gents. Thank you very much.
Steve, I'll ask you a question, right? Obviously only used to, people can add the comments if they want. If Mike Ashley was still in charge and he'd spent £1 billion on players in the last 10 years, and we just finished this season, win a one cup, been to another cup final, finished third, qualified for the Champions League, would we be shouting Ashley out because he was making profit out of it? I think the answer is absolutely not. So I'm really scared this fan base will drift towards that, because we expect it. And the ride that we've been on this season, it's been brilliant, hasn't it? If you look at some of the goals, the games, the joy that we've had, watching the emergence of Miggy, watching Willock belt winning against Chelsea, all these moments that we talked about last week on the moments of the season and everything else. I still go back to my best season ever was our first season when we got promoted under Keegan. Mm-hmm. And we didn't win every game there, but we had a unity, a team. And in 20 years' time, no matter how many trophies we won, people will remember this season for this was the start of it. This is how Eddie Howe moulded us, even if he's not the manager in 3 years' time, 10 years' time, whatever. Shanty's not still the manager at Liverpool. Paisley took over. We're building something absolutely majestic here, something that we've all dreamed of. And there will be things, little niggles that get along the way that's going to annoy all of us. And as I said during my little sermon there, if I was fortunate enough to have a seat that was being moved, of course I wouldn't be happy. But at the same time, I'd still be grateful that I had the opportunity to watch it. And as I understand it, if someone's got a block of 3 or 4, because the family, they're getting offered a block of 3 or 4 elsewhere, it's not just like you're moving, that's it, take it or shut up or leave. There is some consideration, but it should have been discussed with those, as Steve Hasty said, shouldn't have just been done. But again, they'll learn by the mistakes. And show me a man who said he's never made mistakes, and I'll point you to a liar. We all make mistakes, but they're doing it with the best intentions. And we're not always going to agree on everything. But we know that they want the best for this club as we do. And we should be really embracing this and be happy with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, the ticketing situation will always be
absolutely
a conversation of interest to anybody on this platform, because you either got one, you don't have one, and if you've been moved and you feel like you've been mistreated, you can always put it across here. We'll always have our say, but we're not always likely to agree, and that's just the way it is. So that's the beauty of football. Okay, moving on from the ticket situation. Something I didn't get a chance to bring up on the Amigos was that horrendous situation we saw develop. With that Spanish European game, it was crazy, Mitch. The haranguing of the English officials on the pitch, the activity on the sidelines from Mourinho and the manager of the other team. It was embarrassing, and that's almost like an example of what we've got to look forward to going into the European competition next season. The aftermath of that, though, was even more shocking, where Taylor was actually attacked by supporters at the airport. What did you make of all of that? And what do you think there should be consequences?
Look, it ties into, we had that situation at Leeds where the fan come to have a go at home. Okay? And we've seen this in the last year in the Premier League. And I think in parts of Europe it's worse. European football is trying to sweep certain things under the carpet at the moment, because what used to be seen as the English disease, I think, is very much a European disease now. The scenes that West Ham suffered in Holland, where players had to run and defend their families in the crowd, haven't we? We've got the situation where we've got managers, high-profile managers like Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp ran so hard at a referee, he pulled his hamstring. That's fucking mental. I'm sorry. That's just nuts. But nobody has checked it. I don't see many people in the press checking it. I don't see many football authorities checking this seeming ability that match officials are fair game. And by God, we've had plenty to talk about match officials this season in an England VAR situation. But to wind, and this is why when we had the situation at Leeds, I would love to know who spoke to that lad and ask him, what is your motivation? And if his motivation was, well, such and such in the Daily Mail wrote this about Eddie Howe, and yes, assistant manager's a shite house, and yeah, you know, then again, press carries some responsibility for this too. That fans are being wound up to a point where it is seen that is, whether you're in the airport with your family, having a coffee at the beach, or having a pint with your mates, if you're a match official, you're fair game 24/7. Now, the impact on the game is we are desperate, particularly in England, for decent match officials. Is that going to encourage you to stay on as a match official? Don't know. Doubt it. I have a mate who was doing his refereeing badges when we were at university. How old was he? 19, maybe he's going on 20, and he refereed a Courts Cup final under 15s. And the dogs, and this is going back a bit, the dogs abuse he got off the parents, that was the last game he ever officiated. He stopped doing his badges, didn't want it. And I wonder how many potentially decent match officials we've lost over time because of this growing feeling that match officials are fair game. And if the senior figures in football don't seem to be doing much about it, the press don't seem to be doing much about it. In fact, the press, in some cases, the way they report things, almost encourage it. And we've got to find a way to get around this because we'll only get better officials if they stay in the game and are worked on to give consistent, accurate officiating as much as possible. And when you've got other pressures like this outside of the game and outside of your time when you're wearing that black shirt, like I say, when you're in the airport with your family, it's a disgrace. It's another disgrace. I think Barry's quite right. I think refs being made up certainly made a difference in both codes of rugby, because then you kind of get an insight into what's going on in their head and what have they seen and what they have not seen. You know, things like that. I think that's important. But I think it starts with we need a concerted effort from the football authorities and the media to wind that in, because otherwise we're going to lose good officials.
Yeah, good point. What's your views on this, Stu? Officials being attacked, you know, is not acceptable. But I mean, it's gone bonkers, and that really it annoyed me, that game. I missed the first half. I tuned into the second half, watched the extra time, watched the penalties, but it was constant haranguing, harassing surrounding the referee. Michael Oliver must have had ears bleeding after that game because they were on at him all the time. Mourinho as well, terrible example to anybody watching football. Mourinho, he's got a history for chucking his medals away. He did one at Chelsea where he had a winner's medal, chucked it into the crowd because it doesn't mean anything. It's even worse when it's a loser's medal because it just shows you're a bad loser. And it seemed to all stem from them. If the manager's going to behave like that, then that's what's going to happen with the team.
Yeah, you want bad losers, though. That's the thing. You don't want someone to be a good loser, but it's how you conduct yourself. That's the difference.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you something. Another thing that we should be grateful for. It'll be a cold day in hell before you see Eddie Howe conduct himself in that manner.
Yeah,
and you know, and he's a consummate professional. And you know, he seemed to be actually embarrassed when he had to celebrate at the end of the season, do a fist pump, because it's not in his nature.
It's not him.
You know, and that's something that we not that we should take for granted, but yeah, we should be grateful for it. But the scene that Mitch was referring to in the airport, it was despicable. You know, there was fans there spitting at women. You know, spitting like the referee Taylor and his wife. And this, to me, UEFA should have given more protection, but without wanting to blame the fans altogether. If you go back to what you said about the game, Steve,
yeah,
it's a big game for some players. It's the biggest game of their career, and I'm not defending them in any slightest way. This is where the referee needs to be tougher. And in some cases, the more you let them get away with, the more they'll do it. But then the referee's got to be conscious. I could spoil this. There's millions and millions watching, but they have to apply the rules. And if someone's out of order, you give them a yellow card or tell them next time it's a yellow card. So maybe he was too lenient at the start. That's not saying, or even trying to justify the behaviour afterwards, because it was abhorrent and it should not be accepted. I think there should be a stadium ban for Roma fans just alone for what happened in the airport. And Mourinho should be dealt with severely. As much as I rate Mourinho, he is a winner and he doesn't like losing, which is a good quality, but you have to be able to handle yourself better and be a bit more dignified. You know, even if you come up with one of these twisting comments at the end, you know, we didn't lose, you know, they didn't win, the referee won, or whatever he wanted to say. But to then start swearing at the referee in the car park is childish. But people watch that, and he is what he is, but he's also a man who's mature enough and been in the game long enough to know that what he does gets mimicked by other people, and it seems to be acceptable. So whether it's over the top behaviour, the repercussions or the fines or the ban should also be over the top, just to stop it happening again. It needs to be nipped in the bud as soon as possible. And I know someone said there's loads of yellow cards, but they should have been done earlier. And if it means the game's off, then the players are to blame. It was both teams to blame for basically they tactically balanced each other out, didn't they? They nullified each other's threats, and it became a bore fest, and it become frustrating. But that's not the ref's fault. His fault. His job is to apply the law. And if he did it properly, there wouldn't have been 13 yellow cards. There would have been about 8 red cards. And the referee, the managers would have been sent off. It wouldn't even have got the penalties, because once you get 4 red cards, you have to abandon the game. And again, then who's the referee that abandoned the game? It was an English referee. So it doesn't matter what nationality the officials are, they should be protected more. And as Mitch quite rightly said there, where if you're a young aspiring football fan, knowing that you're not going to make the grade as a player, but you want to be involved in the game at some stage, being a referee could be quite exciting. You know, you could be thinking, well, if I get good enough, I could referee a Premier League game, or I could get European games. I could even referee at the World Cup. All of that gets tarnished with what's happened. It puts people off straight away. You know, so again, it's getting back to we're all human and we all make mistakes, but Mourinho is not his first offence. And as I said, as much as I rate the guy, he needs to be punished severely for it.
Yeah, lots of comments coming in. I loved Barry's suggestion. He says, bring in artificial refereeing. What, an AI ref like the Terminator? It would sort it out, wouldn't it? Ban the fans as a collective. They'll win and lose as one. Punish them as one. 2, UEFA should grow some balls and ban them from next season's European competition to set an example. UEFA and the FA are toothless, says JB. Klopp and Jose, as well as Roma as a club, deserve severe punishments, but it never happens. And Craig just wants us to stop talking about refs and VAR, even if it is only for the summer. Mike Blythe.
One more thing, Steve, then. The police, we all seen it on social media. The police should be arresting these people and charging them. Yeah. But when Mitch mentioned there about the Leeds fan, what was his motivation? I'd like to know what he actually was trying to achieve. Because when he got there, anyhow, he's just like tapping his arm and he didn't know what to do until he got escorted away. It's like, what were you trying to achieve?
I think he'd had that many pints of Yorkshire bitter that he thought it was Sam Allardyce. Were Leeds punished for that so-called fan that approached Eddie? And he got banned. He probably just got banned. I felt sorry for Taylor's Ben. She was clearly terrified. Grown Italian men behaving like that when kids are present, unforgivable. But not surprising, as they have a long record of this. Ferry Hill Mags, afternoon, he goes, the Mourinho show, it's all about him. And Stephen says, even if you have rules and punishments, if they're not carried out regardless, then they will be broken by all and sunder, time and time again. And Dark by Design says, refs always bottle a second yellow. You see it time after time. Both teams, both dugouts and the staff were a disgrace, says T-Tank. And if I was Jose's son, I'd be embarrassed and angry. Believe me, Dad or no Dad, I'd have it out with them regardless of the consequences. Lots of people, lots of comments. John, He says, don't think Mourinho's attitude or style of football would suit St James's, particularly in light of what's happened here in the last 18 months or so. Lots of people just saying they wouldn't mind seeing him at Newcastle at some point because of the connection to Sir Bobby. Sentimentality or not, it's not the same Mourinho that came into English football years ago for me.
I think the time for that's past.
Me too. Me too. Okay, we're halfway through the show, so we will play the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. Their website is mrvickies.co.uk. If you want to contact the guys, email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Big thanks to New Workwear. They are an agile and dedicated workwear provider launched in 2018. For more information, go to their website, newworkwear.com. Big thanks, as always, to Media Arts for the help with the video side of things. If you want to support the channel, hit the subscribe button, become a subscriber today. Hit the thumb up under the video, which likes the video, and click share to share to your other social media. Click join if you want to become a member of the channel for as little as $1.99. Or take a one-off payment for the cult membership. You can get in via this QR code if you've got a smartphone, or look for membership pack on the website, nufcmatters.com. What do you get for your one-off £25 payment? You get a scarf, a pen, and a cup, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw. Don't forget, if you want a car sticker, all you need to do is subscribe to the show and then email John at NUFC Matters, and he will post you a free car sticker out. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. And we also support the food bank on this channel. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk is the virtual matchday bucket where you can make a virtual donation 365 days of the year. The new Alan Shearer raffle is underway. 150 tickets at £1 a ticket. You could win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball from the 260 dinner. Enter now at nufcmatters.com. We've got a few events coming up. August the 5th sees Gavin Peacock at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £10 and you can get them now from nufcmatters.com. Our Christmas event takes place on the 7th of December at the Tyneside Irish Centre, and that's an evening with Frank Clark. Tickets are £15 and available from nufcmatters.com. Finally, Waddle, Keegan, Beardsley and friends. The class of 84 is on at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House on Westgate Road in Newcastle on Thursday, January the 23rd. Tickets are now available from the Tyne Theatre and Opera House.co.uk or telephone 0844 2491 000. That's the box office telephone number 0844 2491 000. Charges against Sevilla, invasion of the field of play, throwing of objects, lighting of fireworks, and improper conduct of team. Andrew thinks that the Leeds fan was looking for his sheep. Andy Hamilton says loads of managers get away with it. Minimum punishment, come down hard on them, and it will stop. And BT says charges against ESA Roma, throwing of objects, lighting of fireworks, acts of damage, crowd disturbances, improper conduct of team, insulting, abusive language against a match official, Jose Mourinho. So lots of stuff coming from the chat on that. Okay, just want to put this question to the lads. Alan McKenzie answered it, but it was a question originally by Alan there. What is the current value of our club as we stand today, in your opinion? 800 million the other day, Reuters.
It was by Forbes, I think.
Right, okay.
And the problem with Forbes is they're US based, and so they will weight all the London teams because the nonsense of that list had Crystal Palace valued more than us. And so the weight London-based teams off real estate and an American proclivity that they would prefer to be in London, thank you very much. Mm-hmm. And so the London weighting carries teams like Crystal Palace above us, which is a nonsense. The qualification for the Champions League does suddenly, I think, tip our value over the billion mark. In real terms, additions to the training ground, where it might not seem much in terms of how you're going to value a football club. That'll knock it up a little bit as well. And I think we've just probably tipped over the billion point. I think if somebody wanted to come and buy it off PIF tomorrow, I think that's what PIF would want for it, is at least $1 billion. Because we'll have so many more things in place now. And on the pitch, we will be seen as quote unquote successful because we're qualified for the Champions League. And so I think that's where that comes from. I'm sure it was a Forbes list because it was a weird one. Some of the teams were bang out of what I would consider a proper order for evaluation, and the only reason that would be American waiting for London.
Okay, what do you think, Stu? Anything to add to that?
Well, I agree with everything Mitch said, apart from PIF would ask for $1 billion. I reckon if someone offered them 1.2 billion, they would tell them to jog on, because they're looking at this long term. It would have to be a crazy offer, and I'm talking over 2 billion. I don't think we're worth that yet. I think, in my opinion, that we're valued now. I would have said $1 billion, and then now we've got Champions League, and I know that they'll spend a lot of money in the summer, or as much as they can. That will get us to, I think, the club true value of the club now would be that 1.2 billion, but there's no way they'd sell it for that. So it's what someone's prepared to pay for it, what someone's prepared to sell it for, and they wouldn't sell it for 1.2 billion, that's for sure. They're only just getting started.
Yeah, there's no option, no chance of that happening. Do the lads think Kane will go to Madrid now? Benzema has left. That means Spurs would go for ASM. I mean, let's talk a bit about transfers. I certainly can't see Spurs selling Harry Kane to Newcastle, for starters. I can't see Harry Kane going to any Premiership rival. Manchester United, Manchester City, I think that boat sailed. But I just don't see that happening, lads.
You're forgetting they've got no Champions League money. They've got a 900 million worth of debt. So that will tip over to the billion mark in the middle of next season. And why that will happen is because they've missed a payment deadline, whereby part of that loan was going to start to carry more interest. So that now becomes high interest bearing debt. That was what crippled Man United when the Glazers first bought them. They need money. And the only way they'll get money is to sell one or two of their so-called crown jewels. They've got a dressing room. Loris apparently has made his mouth go saying he wants away. Well, we knew that when he didn't appear in the second half at our place. That was the only injury there was his pride and possibly his lower back from picking the ball out the back of the net. That wasn't an injury substitution at all. My word from the Spurs lads over here was he refused to come out for the second half. They're in trouble. They're in much bigger trouble. I think their fans are twigging on to how much trouble they're in. So, okay, who's going to buy him? Well, Madrid and Barcelona, by God, will have to work some magic economic levers again to make any big signings this summer. They're not in that position. Who else could buy him? Man United could be interested. Liverpool probably not, because they don't have Champions League money this time round. Thank you very much. They're going to have to shift in their transfer plans. And I've also seen, the general question: will the Big Six help? Well, the Big Six need help. Chelsea too. They're going to have to dump players left, right, and centre, and nobody's going to be overpaying to help them. In fact, quite the opposite. That's a point where you've got them by the balls and by the neck, and it's up to you which one you squeeze. And so these negotiations for Chelsea won't be easy. These negotiations for Tottenham won't be easy. Kane is such a vanilla character. He'll not come out and make any big statements in the media about wanting away or anything like that. But he's got 1 year left on his contract, and the only way they're going to realise any value for him is now. And so, and then you come down to, well, where could he go? Who could be interested in him, and who has the money and who has the capacity to do it? And we've had this conversation on here, think that Newcastle United could be keen on him.
Interesting. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Stu, is that your mindset? Do you think that Newcastle would be interested? I mean, I just can't see Spurs selling a rival, and I know they might need the money, but if they can sell him abroad, but I mean, the player might have a bit more say than than the owner having to say you've got to go here. I just don't know how it's going to work.
Well, unless the owner decides to pump a lot of his own money into the club, which surely isn't allowed if PIF aren't allowed to do it in Newcastle, then they're in financial dire straits. And Harry Kane holds all the aces in his hand. He can sit there and say, okay, I'm not asking for a transfer. I'll wait. And if we have a good season next year and we get Champions League again, we could do this, we do that, then I'll sign a new contract. And then because it's like a Mexican standoff with him and Levy, and Levy's really not popular with the Tottenham fans, is he? So he can't say he wants to sell him, but at the same time he can't afford to risk. I don't think they'll get 100 million from anywhere. I think he would go for 70 million last days of the transfer window, take it or leave it.
The fact they've lost the Champions League money puts them in a weaker bargaining position because everybody knows they need cash.
Well, I don't think we'll see Tottenham in the Champions League for the rest of this decade. That's how far they're going to fall down. And it's a bold statement, but unless they get a takeover like we had, it's not going to happen to them. And do I take any enjoyment out of Tottenham and Liverpool, who are our biggest opponents, for being taken over by PAF, not qualifying for the Champions League? Absolutely, I do. Of course I do. It's great. And this is the reason why they didn't want it to happen. So could Newcastle sign them? Financially, yes, because it would create more shirt sales, etc. There's so much that goes into the commercial side of it that could generate extra money, revenue streams that we hadn't touched on when we talked about how the club could generate more money. That would generate more money. But the fact is that we're in this conversation where Newcastle are, although probably outsiders, they are a possibility alongside Manchester United, alongside Real Madrid, alongside Bayern Munich. Doesn't that just sound wonderful? But for me, the deciding factor for Harry Kane is his wife. She's settled. They've got I think it's 4 kids, and they're happy. They've got a happy home, etc., etc. There's one team I think he would improve and actually challenge for the league next year if he signed for, and that would be Arsenal. But that's never going to happen. You put him in that Arsenal team this season, and you could get an extra 10 points easily out of it, because he would make finishes and stuff like that. He wouldn't miss the amount of penalties that they've missed, and with his attitude as well, he could galvanise the squad and drag it through some of the rougher patches that Arsenal faced at the end of the season. So this isn't me saying he's going to sign for Arsenal. I'm just saying which team would suit his style of play best, and he'd suit their style of play best. That would be Arsenal. But for sure, that's not going to happen. But from a selfish point of view, we want him to go to Real Madrid. We want him to go to Bayern Munich. So then he gets away from Shearer's record. And that's what we'd need to protect.
Deddy Al-Ramayan actually asked a question on Twitter earlier. He said, if a Saudi club bought Messi, could they loan him to another, for example, a little club in the northeast of England? Just wondering about financial fair play issues.
I answered it.
Yeah.
On Twitter, I answered it. So yes, they could.
Well, not everyone on this show who watches this show is on Twitter, so that's why I asked the question.
Right, so let's say Al Hilal, that's the most popular. Let's say they signed Messi, and then halfway through the season they had a winter break, and then they decided the January transfer window that Messi is going to go to Newcastle. It's between the two clubs who pays the salaries and percentages of it. Now, bear in mind, he's going to be on, if he does sign, which is highly likely, something stupid like £500,000 a day or crazy like that. We're not going to be paying any of that, So also the long, just to add a bit of fuel to the fire, Messi last year was announced as an ambassador for Saudi tourism. So he's already getting money from Saudi Arabia. So it could quite easily say, right, you give this guy $100,000 a week, it can happen for the rest of the season. I don't think it'll happen. I genuinely don't think it will happen. But to answer the question that was asked, could it happen? Yes, of course it could. And it's between us. You had it with Lingard, wasn't it? When we were looking to get him, they wanted a fee and to pay all his wages. But most of the time, the top clubs subsidised or the loaning club will subsidise the salaries because it gets them off the books and it benefits the loanee. So yes, it could happen, but it won't.
It's absolutely no different to the owner of Nottingham Forest, who also owns Olympiacos, and the owners of Watford, who also own Udinese. If you look at the loans between those two clubs, there's plenty of them, and they're totally legal, and that's with two clubs owned by the same owner. They're looked at very closely and they're frowned upon, but there's nothing they can do about it. And so, yeah, it's entirely possible. Do I think it's going to happen now? I honestly think, I still think the owners would love a marquee signing, and I think the marquee signing would be somebody like a Kane signing that would surprise everybody. That's the kind of thing I think they'd look like.
Okay, interesting. As I say, there'll be lots of transfer chat over the next couple of months as we look ahead to the new season. Barry was talking transfers earlier. Stu, Arsenal hoping Tierney causes a transfer tug of war between us and Villa. Do you think we will bid and walk away? I'd love to see him at St James's. Again, issues dealing with so-called top six.
It's becoming more and more of a reality, isn't it? It's growing. It's like a snowball getting down the hill. It's like become like an avalanche now, isn't it? There's that many reputable news outlets that are commenting now. Take away our association with Newcastle as supporters. As a player, look at Tierney. What are the choices? Newcastle or Aston Villa. So you've got Europa League or Champions League. You're close up to Scotland. You've got a team that plays exciting football. It's a no-brainer. And he'll be offered, as long as you're fit, as long as you're playing well, that left back slot's yours. Same as what Villa will offer. And he's a wealthy enough young man. If they offer an extra $5,000 a week, I don't think that would make that much of a difference. He's won plenty with Celtic. He's won a FA Cup with Arsenal. To win something with Newcastle close at home, his family could come and visit. You know, it's only a couple hours drive from where he was born. His family could come and visit. There's so many benefits for him to sign for Newcastle. This is why I've been so positive all along. And I've seen some people talking about Madison, that they now don't want them. That goes back to, like, just remember where we've come from, remember where we are. Madison, the club wanted last window and the window before, especially last summer where the two bids were put in for him. What's changed? Well, the guy scored over double figures in goals and double figures in assists on a team that got relegated. Imagine what he could do in this team. You know, and if you look at the two of them, you'll get Tierney for 30, Madison for 40. Another name that I've mentioned sporadically, but more so last summer before he signed for Manchester City, was Calvin Phillips. Now, I know I've aired before where I said, to me, he was England's best midfielder at the Euros. And yes, that was 2 years ago, but he was injured last year. We wanted him last summer. He went to Man City, understandable if that was the choices. It hasn't worked out for him. Could Eddie Howe get a tune out of him? Absolutely, he could. Could he regalvanise him and get him back into the England squad, which is what he wants with another Euros coming up? Definitely. So you could get him. And also, if you believe the rumour mill, that's Kovacic from Chelsea's going to Man City for 35 million. So there's no place in the squad for him. So where would he go? Which other Champions League team would sign him? He wouldn't go to Man United after he's been at Man City. He's not going to Arsenal because they've got their other targets that they're after. And he's at Man City already. That only leaves us. So I'm making a case that we could get Calvin Phillips, get him for, say, 40 million. So there's 40, 40 and 30, 110 million spent before we even talk about your name, Dom, your mate, Dom. And I've tried to be pronouncing his name. I wrote it down, Slobazlai, I think it's called. So let's say you get him for 50 million quid. There's 160, say 60 million, 170 million quid on 4 players. They said they wanted to strengthen 3 or 4 players that could come straight in the first team. Well, there's your 4 for me. But I've had a lot of questions or DMs on Twitter. Whenever we get linked with someone, and it's great. I'm enjoying it. I'm embracing the fact that all these quality players are being linked with Newcastle now. You know, we don't want to keep repeating this. Hamza Chowdhury, can we afford his loan fee and stuff like that? But if the agents aren't doing their job properly, we won't get linked with anyone. And of course, I think it was Craig Hope used the term stalking horse. That's exactly what we are. On Newcastle, they're on the up there after him, right? We'll bid more. the agent gets paid more. The bigger the player's salary, the bigger the transfer fee, the more the agent gets paid. They're doing the jobs properly. So let us keep getting linked with people, because I swear to you, and I'm sure you all agree, that our club, our scouting network, have been very thorough in what they've done. So they're not going to say, oh, someone from the Daily Express has linked us with him. Well, we better look at him. What do you think of him, Eddie? When he's on the Caribbean beach or wherever he is, they'll know who they're going for. They'll have this is a preference, choice A, choice B, choice C. If we buy him out of, say, the World Cup or the Champions League draw, if we get him from pot A, then we don't need him from pot B because he doesn't complement them. There's so many things that can happen. The buying club, the selling club, the players' wilderness. But I think the people I mentioned there, Madison, Tierney and Phillips, are all very doable transfers. And I'd be surprised if we don't get at least 2 of them by the end of the window. So that's my little bit on the transfer window for now.
Yeah, okay. Kev T says, did anybody watch Slobby Lobby Bobby last night in the final? Dom to her mate. Very tidy player, but would prefer Madison as he is next level. Mitch, well, it's all about opinions. Your feelings, Mitch, on the old transfer window? It's not even open.
One thing I think they made clear in the last couple of windows, you're not going to come here and take our trousers down. And I think that's what we've got to remember, is that we won't overpay or overreach. And when we do want someone, we tend to sign them. The Isaac move came absolutely out of left field. When everybody was saying in the press, they're going to make a loan signing. They spent the transfer budget, they're making a loan sign. 2 days later, 60 million. We've got a striker who was next level.
Yeah, but Mitch, 2 months before he was rubbish, and he'd only scored 6 goals. Exactly. They know who they want.
It's narratives to suit and all of that. So I think I think it's wonderful to be linked with players of such a high quality, and I think that's all we're going to be bringing in at all levels. Signings we might be making with the intention of getting them out on loan to get more experience and become better players. Again, I think they will be exciting signings in many ways. And if that's how excited we can get over those players, imagine how excited we could be getting about the top end signings that they're talking about, that they're working on. It's quite clear things don't get out of Newcastle United's backroom the way they used to. And I'm all for that. It is wonderful to be surprised when they pitch out somebody like Isaac and say, yeah, done deal, thank you very much, see you later.
It's an example from last night, wasn't it? Someone asked both Mitch and myself, they heard a rumour that Mason Mount had just checked into a hotel in Newcastle. And is it true? Mason Mount was at the Spanish Grand Prix. So unless he got one of those cars and turned into a helicopter and got there as quick as possible, he was in Spain. But so this is going to happen. It's like Elvis in the chip shop and that.
It was very, 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 very provable that he most certainly wasn't in Newcastle. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people saying, what about Kane and ASM swap? Somebody asked before, would ASM be used as a bit of bartering and help them with financial fair play?
In that kind of deal, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he's not going to play a centre forward. He's not a straight replacement. But we know, Mitch, that Tottenham bid from last year and the club were willing to sell him. And I think the fee that was agreed was 38, but he wasn't keen on going. I think if the same bid came in this year, I'd be surprised that they bid that amount this year. But if they did bid that amount this year, I think he'd be more susceptible to go. But again, it's just left field, throwing it out there. I think he'll end up at PSG.
All right. So what I'm going to do each weekend that we do this show, lads, because I've got Barry Hogan.
Here we come.
I've got Barry Hogan, who has kindly agreed this year to make sure that he creates a spreadsheet of each player that we have been linked with, right? And I tell you what, Barry, he's in the chat. He has done a great job this week anyway. I'm not sure how he's going to feel by the end of the window. Probably drained. And I don't know whether you can actually run out of spreadsheet, but the amount of players that Newcastle have been linked with, he probably will. But it's a guessing game, lads. That I want you to guess.
Somebody in Microsoft HQ pressing buttons saying, somebody, Newcastle's broke Excel. What's going on?
This is what's going to happen, you know. So I want you to guess how many players Newcastle United have been linked with so far.
Oh, what you got last year? You stopped counting.
Since when?
Last summer, didn't you?
Well, we started this last weekend.
Right.
So I asked Barry. We actually asked Barry. I asked Barry last Monday, so it's 6 days ago.
Right. Where's he getting the source from? Is it just one, like BBC Sport, or is it from?
No. So at the moment, I can give you just a rundown. So, for example, NUFC blog, the Hard Tackle, the Evening Chronicle, Newcastle World, the Shields Gazette, Give Me Sport, Football Fancast.
Right, so he's looking at lots of different sources.
Daily Telegraph, 90 Minutes, FC Inter News, Sports Witness, Mail Online, Team Talk, Newcastle World, Football 365, Sunderland Echo, the Metro, the Boot Room. See, I'm going down the spreadsheet here. West Ham News, Daily Cannon, whatever that is. I'm learning some new things here, but those are the sources. He is not missing any. So here we'll go in the chat. People are flying in the chat already.
I'll say 180.
Okay, 180.
I initially was going to say 20 in 6 days, but it sounds it's going to be a hell of a lot more than that from what you've just come out with.
So 180 this week is Stu's suggestion. What about you, Mitch?
I'll stick with 20.
Are you going higher or are you going lower?
I'm going to go lower. I'll stick with 20.
Are you going with 20?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Well,
Got to be closer.
The winner this week by a country mile is Stu. So far, Newcastle United have been linked with 112 players in 6 days.
6 days.
In 6 days. In the chat, let's see who was the closest. I would say T-Tank. T-Tank got 100. That's pretty good.
Wow.
On the flip side of that, no,
T-Tank
changed their mind to 1,000, but I'm going to stick with your first one. You would have to go with your first one. Mozza said 147. More conservative from Andrew DB said 72. And then the response, holy crap, good Lord, 112. That's in 6 days. So Barry, thanks for doing that, mate. Keep going. And I think if you can send me that on a Sunday, and send it us on a Saturday, because sometimes we do the professionals on a Saturday. We will let you know how many players we've been linked with. And obviously,
Barry, just remember, Valium's a prescription drug. You've got to go to the doctor to get it. Bloody hell.
I just want to finish off with a lovely comment at the start of the programme by Julie. And as most of you know, we have an end of season do. We always have a Christmas do where you come along and we just get a chance to sit down and meet people. And Julie, who travelled up with her better half, got a chance to meet George Mitchell, Mitch's dad. And it was a lovely quote at the start there. She says, I love meeting your dad. I spent a lot of time with him on the night. And she says, can I add, he is genuinely one of the loveliest people I've had the privilege of meeting and chatting to. Dave said I could grand nap him.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. My dad is a unique individual who I'm very proud of myself. And he's all of that and more. I can tell you that. But also, thank you to everybody, yourself, Steve, everybody at the NUFC Matters, and everybody out there watching the NUFC Matters family for keeping these spirits up over the last few months, and for doing things for me when I couldn't be there. I'm so appreciative of all of that. For you dragging him onto shows to keep his mind active. And keep them focused on what you should be doing, which is enjoying the ride of this season that we're having as Newcastle United as a family.
Yeah.
The internet sometimes brings out the worst in people, but what we don't talk about is when it brings the best out in people. Mm-hmm. So thank you all. I cannot thank you all enough. And He is. He's genuinely one of the best. And you know the thing I love the most is we're sharing family stories now. Stuff that's been quite, personal to us. And people are getting an insight into, and I'm sure we're not that much different to many Newcastle United supporting families around the region and around the world. But to share that over time and to have a laugh about it and look at where the club's been on a journey as a family of supporters with the club, to look at where now, I genuinely feel we're on a launch pad for something really special, and I'm glad my dad's around to tell his stories.
Yeah. Brilliant stuff. Somebody has said, are we having a start of season do? Yeah, in the ad break, we're advertising the Gavin Peacock. That's going to be the start of season do. Also going to be doing some stuff with Liam Kennedy and the lads from Newcastle World in the Gazette. We're going to be doing a few shows together. There's going to be a bit of an announcement a little bit closer to the start of the season. But as always, that hour has passed very quickly. But it's been a pleasure spending time with the professionals, Stu and Mitch. See you again soon, lads. Take care.
Cheers, lads.
Have a good night, everyone.
We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.